Ladies and gentlemen, in this Red Gaming Technicom video, we're going to be talking about the Xbox 720, also known, of course, as Durango, and specifically comments that the CEO of Gamestop, that would be Mr. Paul Raines, has made on the new machine. I'm going to give a direct quote before we jump into the video as a whole, and that would be, we've been spending a lot of time with Microsoft, but we have let them take the lead on this, but it would be a very hot, compelling device. They're doing some really cool stuff, and I'm eager to hear them start their announcements because I think the world is going to stand up and take notice. Furthermore, he went on to say there's a lot of demand for the PS4, and I think there will be for the next Xbox as well once it's announced. Obviously speaking, most of the time, big companies such as GameStop and Electronic Arts and so on, in other words, people in the industry, will have at least ideas of what Microsoft are going to be doing now, or indeed Sony, and there are a couple of reasons for this. Obviously, it helps for developers and publishers and, well, sales outlets to know things such as dates and the rough peripherals that are going to be released. And that's sometimes why that you will see, for example, box art leaked, because it was accidentally placed on a certain website of a retailer, or even how sometimes Amazon, for example, have accidentally leaked the fact that a certain game is going to be released to a certain sequel. And then, of course, lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, the company sheepishly announces the game as, yes, it's actually true. Sometimes, of course, this actually is completely purposeful. In other words, they want those sales figures, they want the hype machine to start to begin to grind forward. Anyway, in regards to this, Sony have done a very good job in regards to the PS4 announcements. Obviously, they made a very killer announcement on the PlayStation 4's first kind of press conference, as well as the GDC. And they haven't just done so in regards to the gamers, in other words, you and I, but also members of the press, but more importantly probably to anyone, the developers themselves. And many right now are considering Sony on a fairly free ride, as they've announced first and there's a lot of excitement. However, it also means that Microsoft can do some good strategic planning. Now, we're expecting to hear their announcement certainly by the end of this month, and there's a good possibility that the system itself is going to be released not that long after the PlayStation 4 is as well, because obviously they don't want Sony to have that long ahead of them in the market. But because obviously Microsoft are announcing later, they do have some time to reformulate their plan, and more to the point, they also have some time to ensure that they have some unique features that maybe Sony missed on their system, tweak their system a little bit as well, maybe incorporate some of the features that Sony have on the PlayStation 4 in terms of the software side of things, and generally speaking to make sure that developers are on board as well. Now obviously developers like, say for example, Electronic Arts have certainly seen and maybe even played with both sets of hardware, and so have ideas of how both are going to be handling, but of course they're not going to be announcing, you know, which one's better yet by any stretch of the imagination. So I think right now the ball is much in Microsoft court. They're going to really have to differentiate themselves between this current generation, in other words the Xbox 360, and the next generation, in other words the Xbox 720/Durango. And by differentiate themselves, it can't just be an improvement over the graphics. I think that they're going to also have to do, much like maybe Sony have done in terms of add new features into the system as well, but they can't really just rely upon that. They're going to have to really hammer home the fact that their system is the better one, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on them. However, GameStop are definitely being very bullish on their claims. They certainly seem very confident in Microsoft's products, and usually for good reason. Microsoft, for the most part, in terms of hardware at least, haven't really failed on the Xbox space. Sure, the original Xbox didn't do particularly awesome. It didn't do amazingly, but it did do enough to solidify their position into the market. I believe they were even losing some money on the original systems as well in terms of per one sold. So for example, let's say that an Xbox One sold, it might cost the Microsoft, say, $50 for a system to be sold, and therefore of course they would have to make the rest up, in other words profits from the games, although I'm not exactly sure of those sales figures. But Microsoft have a very good track record. Obviously, there are other concerns that Microsoft have right now. They cannot have another repeat of the Red Ring of Death, or also known affectionately, of course, as the RROD. That would be very bad. But other than that, Microsoft have a fairly good track record, pretty good relationships with distributors, and pretty good pretty good relationships with most games developers. However, of course, there was the slight controversy that some indie developers have been commenting on recently, with the XNA support becoming somewhat less and less each month, it seems, regardless of anything else. However, some are very confident, and obviously they've not really said anything regarding the Xbox 720 in terms of whether they've got to use it. However, they do seem fairly confident, for the most part, that Microsoft are going to definitely improve on their support, and they really have to, because Sony are definitely putting out a helping hand for a lot of the developers, especially with the way that their architecture is working and the different levels of control you have and different programming control you have over the PlayStation 4. So I think it's going to be a very interesting time indeed. I think it's going to be very good to have two competing products. I don't just really want the PlayStation 4 to dominate for the first couple of months and then the Xbox to be released a little bit later. I'd like them to be released roughly in the same time schedule. This would also, of course, drive the price down and force both companies to be on the A game and release as good games as possible. Not that they won't anyway, for obvious reasons. Let's say you've only got 2 to 3 months a head start of your competition. You're going to want to do as best you can. But anyway, I think that's about it for this particular video. Do subscribe if you're interested in next generation technology, of course, because we're going to be continuing to do a lot of in-depth analysis over the next couple of weeks. And certainly I am absolutely rubbing my hands together actually at the thought of actually seeing the specifications of the Xbox 720. Hopefully we're going to have some more concrete information on the PlayStation 4 as well soon, if only the actual aesthetics of the thing, in other words what the actual console design itself looks like. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you soon. Take care and bye for now.